What if, instead of helping marginalized students adapt to existing higher education institutions, we shaped higher education based entirely on the needs of these students and their communities? I'm Dr. Jennifer Lebron, leader of the USAID Higher Education Learning Network, and that question has been on my mind throughout this year, ever since I had the pleasure of hosting Dr. Sylvia Schmelkes, founder and former general coordinator for Intercultural and Bilingual Education in the Education Ministry of Mexico. During our Stories of Inclusive Access event, Dr. Schmelkes shared a model for intercultural universities created primarily in rural communities for indigenous students in Mexico. She also shared several promising practices to support access to higher education for underrepresented populations that can be applicable around the world. Take a look.
Well, first, we tried to respond to indigenous demands. They wanted high-quality education, they wanted culturally, linguistically, and regionally relevant education, and they wanted a say in the administration of their own educational institutions. So we tried to respond to that by creating institutions that had very strong community participation, that were community-centric, that encouraged outreach, and that motivated graduates to stay in the communities after graduation. So what are some of the promising practices in supporting higher education for underrepresented populations? Well, first is research. I think that is a very promising practice because all teachers, all professors, and all students are involved in investigating their own communities, their language, their culture, and their problems and potentialities. Another interesting practice is that all students and teachers are involved in cultural, linguistic, or economic development projects. The outreach of the universities begins from the very first semester of the courses in the university for students. And also we have an integral education. There is connection between the academics, the arts, sports, there is service to the community, there is language learning, and there is cultural awareness.
To learn more about the challenges of providing higher education access to indigenous populations in Mexico, including poverty, racism, and the recruitment and retention of faculty, plus how intercultural universities have been making an impact in these communities, watch our entire conversation in the Stories of Inclusive Access event, available on the USAID Higher Education Learning Network website. While you're there, you can review the Women's Access to Higher Education Evidence Primer to learn more promising practices for inclusive higher education.